Well, thank you, everybody. Ladies first is not applying since Sheila asked me to go first, which means I'll give you a brief history of my writing career. I began as an actor and at an award show in 2011, a man came up to me and said, could you write a 40-minute one-man show based on this short story and perform it in Denver in 6 weeks? And I said yes. And that man ran a company called ExperienceIt.Inc.ca. His idea of doing corporate events was to basically freak out the attendees by putting them in some alternate venue rather than just a row of chairs. So there were sets and costumes and all that kind of thing. That has continued for decades. The last one I did was with the titan of technology, Tim Riley at Annesley. Things have gone digital now, so I don't go out as much as I did, but that's happened. In the meantime, I was working with a variety of construction crews, which gave me a variety of introductions to a variety of the weirdest people that I've ever met. The funniest people and the most heartfelt as well, all construction workers. I made notes for probably 2 years, and I finally put it into a memoir called Open Up the Wall, Revelations of a Renovation Contractor, which I will leave for you, and you can buy them. So I did that, and then after you write a book, the first question people ask you is, what are you doing now? And I thought, well, I could write another book, and so I started. And I got 100 pages in, and I showed it to my wife. I said, this is brilliant, look at this. And she read it, and she said, I can't make heads or tails of this. There must be 100 characters, and 40 characters in 100 pages. I don't know what's going on, I don't figure it. So 100 pages were out. Sheila Balls came along, invited me to a writer's group where I have a kind of a discipline and an energy that keeps myself focused and the writing going. So I will now read to you the opening chapter, or portion of the opening chapter of my new book called Near Miss, the story of relationships that just don't work. Buffalo, USA, May 1940. In the lunchroom of the Buffalo Savings and Loan Bank that day, Chuck Weaver had opened the Buffalo News to a quarter-page ad which called to him in bold capital letters, "Pilots Wanted." With the tip of his pocket knife, he carefully scored the newsprint around the notice until it came away clean. The little knife had been a gift from his father, and Chuck kept the blade sharp and the walnut body polished, in memory of the man that Chuck really never got to know. There had been an incident and an inquiry, a finding of negligence, and 16 months after Mr. Weaver had been crushed to death on the job, Mrs. Weaver was awarded a settlement of $11,894.19 to lift their spirits. She gave $200 each to her teenage sons, Brent and Chuck. Brent bought a used car, and Chuck bought flying lessons. Brent had tried to reason with his little brother, warning that flying lessons were not only dangerous, but a frivolous waste of money. Nevertheless, 7 weeks after his 17th birthday, Chuck received his pilot's license. Now, the Delaware branch of the Buffalo Savings and Loan Bank serviced the city's elite, who came to their mansions from Delaware Avenue to review their investments with the 3 senior savings and loans officers on the mezzanine level. The branch manager had told his staff to think of the branch as a classy restaurant. Everything top drawer, shoes shined, stockings seen straight, and employees were never to be seen with a cigarette dangling from their lips. And as the grandfather clock in the reception area chimed 1, Chuck Weaver escorted Mrs. Enid Harmer to a seat at the oval table on the bank's main floor. The glass eyes on the heads of Mrs. Harmer's mink stole glared at Chuck, as he clipped coupons from her Wells Fargo long-term bonds. "There we are, Mrs. Harmer," Chuck said, using his cheery bank voice. 7 $100 coupons for a total of $700. Are these to be deposited into your account? There were 8. I beg your pardon? There were 8 coupons. There are 8 sheets, and you cut a dividend from each sheet. Yeah, Mrs. Harmer, you did bring 8 sheets, but one of those sheets came to term last year, so there's no coupon to take from it. You clipped it last year. You can see here by the purchase date. Mrs. Harmer stood up and said loudly, "Don't you lie to me. You will find yourself in front of my husband, Judge Harmer." Chuck stood and pushed a receipt across the table. Looking down at the woman, he said, "Here's a receipt for the coupon clipped last year that you brought back this year by mistake. It's numbered 00182. Now, if you look at the bond that you brought in here today by mistake, you will see that its number is 00182 as well. This should make it clear that you falsely accused me of a serious crime. I think that Judge Harmer would be ashamed of you if he knew." Mrs. Harmer turned red. "Such impudence," she fumed. "I will speak to the manager now." "The manager will be along presently," said Chuck. "You can tell him all about it." Then he lit a cigarette and walked out the front door. On the bus ride home, he rehearsed what he would say. "I'm going to Canada, Ma. They need pilots to fly bombers so they can build up their air force for the war overseas. It's my chance to fly, Ma, to be a real pilot. I'll send you money, because I won't be spending much, seeing as how the Royal Canadian Air Force will put me up and they give me a uniform, so probably things should end up a bit better around here than they are now. And Brent's going to be here. He's not going anywhere." Chuck had trouble with the sentimental parts. His family was not cold or unloving family, but Chuck had not heard any of them say, "I love you," ever. At his father's funeral, his mother patted the coffin and said, "You will be missed, dear." His big brother was the only one home in the house when he arrived. Brent took Chuck's departure in stride, and Chuck took Brent's advice. "Take your suit," he said. "That way I can tell Ma you're planning on going to church up there." "No, I'm going to get a uniform." "Oh, yeah, I guess so." "Okay, then. Well, good luck, Chuck." Brent would have driven his brother to the station, but earlier that year his car had been stolen. When the bus stopped at the Canadian border, the passengers were ordered off by 2 soldiers wearing helmets and carrying rifles. And it was the first time that Chuck fully grasped that the world was at war. He presented his flight logbook and the newspaper clipping to 2 soldiers. "I'm going to enlist in Kingstown," he told the soldiers. One of them smirked and the other said, "It's not Kingstown. It's one word and it's pronounced Kingston. Say it right or you get pegged as a Nazi spy. Anyway, you have to enlist in Toronto and then the Air Force will probably send you up to Kingston Airfield." So 17 hours later, Chuck boarded the train to Kingston wearing the pale blue uniform of the Royal Canadian Air Force and the insignia of a flight sergeant on the shoulder of his belted jacket. A pimply-faced airman stood and saluted him. Chuck tentatively returned the salute and took the airman's seat, overwhelmed by his new status. The train whistle blew 3 times as it went past the pretty little Kingston station, coming to a stop half a mile past the town beside a football field with a row of trucks on the 50-yard line. All the airmen jumped from the train and ambled over to the trucks. Chuck followed the procession until he was intercepted by a young lady in uniform. "Flight Sergeant Charles Weaver?" It took Chuck a moment. He was taken aback by the soldier with the startling green eyes. "Yeah, that's me," he said. The young woman smiled up at him. "Welcome to Kingston Field, sir. I'm Corporal Reed. I will be your driver for a day or 2 until you get to know your way around the field. Now, you will have a full briefing tomorrow with your superior officers who are heading up the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan here in Canada." Chuck nodded. "Do you have any questions, sir?" No. Well, yeah, no, not yet anyway. I haven't slept in a couple of days, so I gotta say I'm kind of overwhelmed. Overwhelmed, yeah, that's the word. He watched the young corporal turn and walk to her jeep. "Hop in, Flight Sergeant," she called. "I'll take you to your quarters." Lillian drove slowly across the grass before accelerating down the paved road, expertly shifting the gears on the new Jeep. She was aware that her passenger was stealing glances at her. Every woman on the base had complained at one time or another of being ogled, but this time Lillian didn't mind this flight sergeant thinking about her. Pulling up to a windowless wood frame hut, she said, "This is you, sir, Barracks F. I will be here at 0640 to take you to orientation at the hangar." "Thank you, Corporal." "Yes, sir. The hall light switch is on the left as you go in." Well, the hall light switch remained dark when Chuck flipped the switch. He used his lighter to illuminate the hallway and found a room with 2 beds, both mattresses rolled up. He flipped the light switch, but this room also remained in darkness. Across the hall was a kitchen. Chuck opened the refrigerator, but no light came on. He snapped the lid of his lighter shut, and groping his way back to his room with the beds, he unrolled one of the mattresses. He took off his new uniform and carefully draped it over the other mattress. Then he put on his civilian shirt and overcoat and went to sleep on the bed. He awoke alarmed and frightened, with no idea where he was and no idea where the loud banging was coming from. And then a light shone from the hallway, footsteps, a door creaked, and a bright light hit his face. "Oh, no!" cried Corporal Reed. "Oh, God!" cried Chuck. "Oh, sir, 6:40 pickup. What time is it?" "Time to go, sir." "Oh, God. I'll be a minute. You have to shave, sir. Officers must be clean shaven." "Oh, God. Okay. I'll be outside, sir." "Oh, God. Okay." Chuck wrestled himself into the unfamiliar uniform, and then suddenly, realizing he removed the jacket again and rummaged through his suitcase for his razor. He found his way to the bathroom and considered how best to shave in a pre-dawn light. And then from the front door, Corporal Reed shouted, "You have some more time, sir. About 5 minutes." A fast cold water shave, and Chuck raced out to the Jeep, jacket over his arm while he tied his tie. Corporal Reed was beside her Jeep, breathing hard. She had removed her jacket and hat and now stood straddling a tire, holding a hammer in her right hand and a rusty screw in her left. With one swing, she drove the screw into the tire tread, and with the hammer's claw, she yanked the screw out again, letting the air escape from the tire. Hoisting the tire into the Jeep, she asked, "Are you ready, sir?" Yeah. What are you doing?" "Well, sir, I estimate that you will be 20 minutes late for your orientation. When they hear that I had to change a flat tire, that will explain your 20-minute delay." Jesus! Good thinking, Corporal. I owe you. Lillian hiked up her skirt and leapt into the Jeep. She revved the engine and called, "Yes, sir, get in." Gravel sprayed across the Barracks F, and Lillian accelerated away from the building, bouncing her Jeep across the grass towards the hangars in the distance, both of them laughing in spite of themselves. Lillian, that's enough, I think. Thanks. Gives you an idea where we're headed.
Thank you, Geoff. And from fiction to poetry.
I'm just going to turn around a bit because I think I've got my side view. Okay. So, that was neat. That was really fun. I'm going to read from this book that is just about a year old, and it's a lot of it's about teaching. I taught high school for 29 years, and got all the gray hair I can use. And I started by teaching English for about 20 years. Right away, I started with behavioral classes because that seemed to be trial by fire, and then you do a couple of years or 1 year of that, and then you get into some academic classes. About 20 years of English, and then careers in civics and parenting, family studies. We had a Syrian family come, so I taught ESL and special ed. And it was fantastic. It was really fantastic. I mean, there were difficult times because not everybody is a reader. Not every child is read on the laps of their parents or grandparents. So there were struggles there, but I had a lot of good experiences. So I'm going to start by reading one about teaching poetry. And this is where I always heard the groans, and then I had to lock up. Grade 12 English, a unit of poetry. There would be monstrous groans at the beginning, which threatened to defeat me, undo my buoyant joy, and then I leapt to action. Pricked curiosity, enlivened drowsy thoughts of Friday afternoon or Monday morning, alerted teens to wonders of spring, the pyramids, and dreams. Talk of love and lust, a brief comparison, which perked their ears like attentive rabbits. They grinned then and asked me things we pondered together. What is the difference between like and love? One boy asked. And there was a pause so pregnant, I knew I'd hooked the most of them, as all silent awaited my reply. And I, 25, fed the question back to them as pablum on a tiny spoon. As we examined small portions meted out of a question which keeps us generating generations. Our love getting the better of us if we have sense enough to love. And then my students took up their pens, looked into the distance briefly, and wrote to the ancient and holy tune of their beating hearts. So I did teach a lot of academic English, and at first, and then I think I was kind of pegged as someone who didn't lose their temper. So I was often given classes which were quite rowdy, and the kids didn't, grade 9, you know, they get up to grade 9 no matter what, and then if they don't like reading, they struggle to write and struggle to read, and it's a bit rowdy, but I didn't flap the handle, so I think that was to my regret. I never taught a Juliet. In all my years teaching teens in beef country, home of Holsteins and Black Angus, and fields of corn to feed them, I waited for the day Juliet would appear on my list, arrive in dainty slippers, toss her waterfall hair, captivate the boys who strutted in the room in muddy boots, as surely as the play would reach its inevitable end. I did insist my students vow to take their time in love, wed one who makes them merry, who makes their hearts sing a tune of forever, a song without words, each one hums a little off key. So my husband is the cook almost every jour in our household. So I'm lucky for that. I just take care of the writing about his food. So that makes him happy. I did write a sonnet for him. Sonnet for Earl. Shall I rejoice at your first meal of June? It was a steak broiled rare that moves my pen. Mashed tatties hot with butter made me swoon. Beside a cob of corn I had again. Your loving care of details to the taste is wondrous to my unschooled cooking self. Orgasmic is the word I say in haste, and marvel at the spices from the shelf. My stomach sings, my hands begin to clean, the many pans and pots upon the stove. My gratitude expressed in words serene does move me now to ink and paper rove. Your culinary skills I often praise, asparagus was drenched in hollandaise. So that was a fun one to write. They're all fun to write. And you don't have to write for a living. It's all fun. So this one, I didn't meet my husband till I was 29. He was 28. Love song. I went to the mountains, I went to the sea. I didn't find you, you didn't find me. I went to the forest, I went to the lake. Everywhere I searched for a man to take. I didn't find you, you didn't find me. Till my heart was near broke, till I was near 30. Where were you, what were you doing? Where were you when? I was pink and luscious, not an ancient grizzled hen. Grade 5. So think back to grade 5. years, and grade 4 and 5 are his favorite grades because they were still keen and have to have the cool factor at that stage. Grade 5, those were the days in Mr. Zuyev's class when the sweet-voiced boys more than once called out, "You girls are pigs," and then gleefully added, in case we had forgotten since the last time, "Pretty intelligent girls." It was the first acronym I can recall in the golden days of grade 5. The times tables falling into place, Arthurian legends with swords poised, styrofoam planets above us, a romantic comedy for the tragedy of puberty, when God disappeared for a while. So I had a lot of essays to write during the academic classes. We usually had 2 classes of the same course, so we would have about 50 to 60 essays to mark every time we had submitted or had an essay assigned. So I had to have a strategy for dealing with all this. Coping strategy. After the Herculean task of marking 3 essays per hour, I afford myself a single Jersey milk chocolate square, which melts heavenly in my mouth, alleviating the pain of run-on sentences, garbled thoughts, spelling errors, grammatical atrocities, illogical arguments, and sometimes, with the frequency of an eclipse, to celebrate a perfectly turned phrase, which enthralls in dulcet magnificence, as if it were a line from the bard himself, reaching down through centuries to a 15-year-old soul, giving me hope once more to begin the next essay trio, my red pen at the ready, before rewarding myself in the manner of Pavlov with another sublime as a sonnet in its own way, Jersey Milk Square, the food of the gods and his teacher of English. Now for something completely different. Okay. To remember and forget. I was 31 and nursed my mother best I could at home, while cancer took her swiftly. We grieved before her death on Mother's Day and after. 1 month on, I wed my loving husband in a church where we were 6. When I cried, a ray of sunlight shone through colored glass. Our goal was a child to offer my father in his sorrow, to bless our lives and his, a cry of hope in an old and tarnished world. Perhaps our welcome girl suffused his pain with love for a time, though he took his life when she was 9. Another year to remember and forget as we held a second daughter in our arms. 2 deaths twinned with 2 births, 2 sorrows and 2 joys, still breaking and mending our fragile hearts that beat like drums, the bass notes and the grace notes in the concert of our lives. Okay. Lineage. 2 introverts created a mute me. An atheist, an agnostic, made an agnostic Quaker. 2 parents raised in hamlets made a village girl. 2 listeners of jazz created a lover of Ella and Sarah, Bublé and Groban. A surgical nurse and an elementary school teacher created a teacher of English. A reader of Steinbeck and one who quoted poetry made a writer. 2 myopic parents made a daughter with glasses of 12, but with an inner vision from all that silent observation to question everything read, seen, and heard, while believing all felt experience a measure of truth. Often the apple does not reach the ground when it falls briefly in the autumn wind, but is caught in branches to shine in the sun for another season. So we're going to get snow soon. Sorry to tell you, if you didn't know. So I I write every morning and I get up now and then do things, do activities and chores around the house. But I write every morning, so then I go to the library and type in the afternoon. And they help me with the copy and paste, which I still can't do. So, snow belt. There is the promise of freezing rain, and I hope to Goddess it is fulfilled. Nothing pumps my adrenaline like the prospect of days inside, listening to handfuls of uncooked rice pelted on windows by phantom wedding guests. This storm we may recall years from now. Tell descendants roads were closed for a week. We skated to the store for a bag of milk, a loaf of bread, bought only one of each, as supplies dwindled on the shelves, and we were mindful of our neighbors. We will remember the excitement of survival, our welcome home exclaimed upon, as if we had been gone for weeks, our return uncertain, frosty eyebrows aging us prematurely, and worth a remark. Perhaps there would be a treat, a sweet, or better, chips and onion dip, a special day indeed. We could munch through evening, gnashing our teeth with the abundant edginess of confinement. The wedding party throws handfuls of rice, one for every wedding that has ever been. I'm going to read a couple that are not published yet. How are we doing for time? 10 more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. I'll read 2 poems. I think of her. When my mother was a nurse, she didn't buy blackout blinds or eye masks to wear when she worked nights and tried but failed to sleep during the day. She was tired but kept on keeping on. Once driving home from the hospital, she fell asleep behind the wheel. Forever after, when she drove home in the mornings, she rolled down the window, sang show tunes at the top of her voice to fight to stay awake. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair and send him on his way. Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. I imagine her singing at the top of her voice the tunes we listened to together from musicals not so long ago. The tunes we sang when I was 12. The song I sang to her as I massaged her back as she lay dying. We were a couple of swells. We stopped at the best hotels, but we prefer the country far away from the city smells. Yes, my mother lived on a farm as a child, loved the scent of new-mown hay, knew Timothy when she saw it, waving in a field. I wonder what she thought of those last moments of thought before thoughts dissolved to nothing. I wonder what she heard her last moments of sound before all went silent. When I hear old show tunes now, I think of her. When new-mown hay is in the air, she is on my mind. And one more. Bruce County farmer. Usually he was taciturn, not prone to outbursts. Oh, diddle was oft upon his tongue. Yet when the cattle would escape and jump the fence and cause impediments to his day, it was then he gave a howl almighty. Jesus H. Lord tap dancing Christ. And you can imagine Jesus in his robe, his tap shoes peeking out, so shiny you could comb your hair in the reflection. Jesus was on the move, a veritable blur on the sod, and his teeth were gleaming. Jesus loved to dance after a glass or 2 of red. That was fun. Okay.
Well, I know a good many of you. You already know my history. I always thought I was a writer. I didn't start writing books until I retired from teaching. As Jennifer knows, you don't have time to write when you're teaching. But somewhere around the age of 12, I discovered people would pay for my writing. And that was a wonderful discovery at age 12. I was very excited about that. And I had a few little things published, which I would be horrified to show any of you now.
Yeah.
Anyway, this would tell you a little bit about the start of my writing career. The publishing world was completely unknown to me when I sent my first dozen stories off to the Brucedale Press. Thankfully, editor Ann Judd had faith in me as a writer and a vision of how the stories could become a book. Ann's careful teaching was much needed. I was so inexperienced as a writer that I sent a collection of unrelated stories tucked into colorful paper pockets in a pretty but unconventional, read inappropriate, folder. The manuscript came back, its pages neatly stacked in a pile. Anne said my stories would evoke memories that will echo with many readers. I sent the happy news on to our daughter in Guelph. Subject of email: am I famous now? And she emailed back right away. Wow, that's great news, Mom. Now I can really say my mom's a famous author. Carl, who seldom used the computer and never wrote letters, saw this as a grand enough occasion to painstakingly type his own response to Catherine, searching out each letter and watching the screen as he wrote. Well, let me tell you, this living with a celebrity is a real pain. Phone calls, autograph sessions, endorsement meetings, wardrobe fittings, makeup sessions, hair consults, shoe fittings, and oh Lord, the lingerie decisions. And that's not even counting the stuff that Sheila has to do. It's just a whirlwind. It is kind of exciting though. Sheila just said, oh, it's just something I dashed off. Oh brother, she's so damn modest. You have her permission, under advisement of her lawyer, to sell autographs for a nominal fee and personal effects at a higher price, starting next week when we have had more time to tear up some of her old nightgowns. I'm not sure who was the writer in the family. Heather knew Carl. No, you didn't know Carl.
Oh no, I loved Carl, yes.
Oh yes, yes, you
I
did know Carl, yes.
Carl.
I'm not thinking, and of course, Helen is Carl's sister. She was the quieter one in the family. Okay. Some of you living in this area might have known Joan Secord. Anybody? Did you, Lyra? What a character. Joan was just she was a character. Joan wheels into the driveway to pick me up for Aquafit. I barely get the car door open and she pulls out her cell phone. I saw a groundhog down at the corner, she reports into the phone. And without further ado, she closes it up and drives off. I would classify Joan's demeanor, and my own as well, as leaning towards unconventional, not quite eccentric, but a little quirky at times. Still, the groundhog announcement causes me to do a double take. Is it possible that ours is the only family who plays Name That Groundhog? I briefly described the strange, long-standing game our family used to play on car trips. And when Joan admits that this is a new concept for her, I briefly run over the rules. The first person who sees a groundhog gives it a name starting with A. And then the next person chooses a name with B, and so on. You are not allowed to name dead groundhogs. We had to make that rule for Carl. Joan laughs. She can imagine all too well how Carl needs more rules than the rest of us. In fact, she is one of the few people who keeps Carl on his toes. The two of them passed an evergreen branch, not a little bit, it was about an 8-foot branch, okay? An evergreen branch back and forth in inventive ways for several months one time. The fact that the branch died and turned brown did nothing to stop the exchange. Carl planted the branch in Joan's garden that spring. She returned it in a box with instructions for cremation. I cannot remember Carl's next move, but the following December, Joan attached it to a little fence in our yard as Christmas greenery, or maybe I should say brownery. We are a few kilometers south of Markdale when a groundhog pops up to our right. Bedelia, I shout. This name is most likely lurking in the back of my mind since Joan calls her car Bedelia. Carl and I have named more than a few of our cars over the years. There was Nellie, one of our first vehicles, which Carl once attached a sheet of plywood to and used as a plow. Spunky, who outran a tornado, and the Chariot of Fire, pinky beige clunker with a do-it-yourself paint job gone wrong, which had been so named because it burst into flames on one occasion. Joan was a confident driver and an even more confident swimmer. Soon after I met her, she had invited me to aquafit at the Delphi, a local swimming pool. Oh, I have a leg problem and I can't do weight-bearing exercise, I explained. You don't have to, replied Joan. And I'm a poor swimmer, I comment. You don't have to be good at that either, she said. Sure enough, aquafit was an excellent way for me to get exercise. There were was a more obvious purpose to the activity though, having a good time, where other groups might work out to the Beach Boys or Black Eyed Peas, depending upon your generation. This group provided all their own music while they flutter kicked or skied or did jumping jacks. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due, we sang as we bicycled around the pool. In this group of 30 or 40 women, Joan had no particular claim to her name. There were at least 5 and possibly 7 Joans. We joked that if you forgot someone's name at the pool, you simply needed to call her Joan, and there was a likelihood you would have the name right. There were murmurings amongst the Joans and the not Joans that the Delphi was struggling financially. It could only hold on by the fingernails for so long. One morning we arrived to find trucks loading up the equipment. Goodbye, Delphi. Time to find another place to swim. Joan and I and half a dozen other Delphi refugees settled on Stone Tree, south of Owen Sound, despite the 45-minute drive to get to the pool. At the moment, we are about 20 minutes into the drive. Joan has still not given me a name for the groundhog she spotted a few minutes earlier. I tried to encourage her. You can give me the name of a girl or a boy, I comment. Joan is ready for me. I didn't get close enough to check. There, I bet you could hear her saying that. I'm not really a poet, but I'm going to read a poem. I include poetry, journal entries, letters, Facebook posts, and poor Tim has to manage to format all that into books. This poem is called While You Are Away. Carl was in hospital much of the last 10 years of his life. So he was in hospital one entire summer. He had either 12 surgeries in 13 years or 13 surgeries in 12 years, but I don't know which it was now. I've lost track. Anyway, this poem is called While You Are Away. Do you miss me when you waken? Do you picture me nightgown wrapped, gently trapped in a little space between 2 cats, floating ideas vaguely past my waking brain? Do you see me running my bath, pouring in the bubbles, phone on the floor beside me in case you call? Or at the computer writing letters to everyone I know, giving out your address like an offering, trying to connect us to the world? Do you hear the music? I'm playing the piano, a concert for 1 or maybe 2. Okay. Oh, Oh, Lyra, you might have been part of this.
Oh, sure. Is it exciting?
I'm not sure if you were in your readers group at the time that this happened.
Almost lost those things.
Since a lot of you are from the area, if you've gone by the pond, the house where we lived was the little house closest to the pond. There's a house way up on the hill, and then our house was right at the pond. And we had a bit of it, well, I didn't. I stayed out of it. Carl had one battle royal with the town planner over whether we could have a little 10-foot by 10-foot cabin on the pond side, which we owned, but it seemed like we didn't have the right to have anything over there, only to mow the lawn and keep it looking good. That's our only right. Anyway, so we moved the cabin. The grandchildren were much excited by that process because it involved a big machine coming in and lifting it up into the air, and we moved it across into our own yard, which was quite forested. With spring here, I ventured out to the cabin where I discovered the padding in my best lawn chair had been torn up by mice during the past winter. While I did not actually see any mice, I left the cabin in a hurry, letting friends know via Facebook that 1, we had been invaded, and 2, I had no wish to meet the mice in person. Right away, 2 book club members offered to wear garden gloves to our upcoming meeting and investigate the scary mice in the cabin. Who are you going to call? Mousebusters. Guess I will stop complaining about mice. Just learned that a baby black bear has been sighted on Balmy Beach Road, where we spent our first 15 years of marriage. I might not care for mice, but at least they don't grow up to overturn your garbage cans and claw at the doors of the local bakery in search of blueberry pastries. I had exaggerated concerning that last part. The bear was real enough, and I expect the pastries were too. If a bear would damage a door to the extent we had witnessed in person, but the bakery was 3/4 of an hour north of us, hardly local. There was a sizable difference between a hungry bear and a small mouse just looking for padding to fill her nest for the winter. But I was glad when my friends closed up their books and headed out to drive the little intruders from the cabin. This is the Facebook post. Status after the LBCO. We called ourselves the Little Book Club of Ontario. We had called ourselves the Little Book Club because I belonged to a big book club. And then we saw the initials looked familiar, so we needed an O on the end. Status after LBCO. Members present, 10. Books discussed, a couple of dozen. Mousebusters expedition to cabin, 3 combatants, plus 7 observers. Lawn chairs ruined by mice, 1. Actual mice spotted, 0. A good time was had by all, even the mice who must have been by that time off ruining somebody else's lawn chairs. And please have more food, and let's be really informal. If anybody has questions they'd like to ask any of us, we would love to answer them, but you're welcome to get up and graze and and take the food back.
Who made the cookies?
I made the blue ribbon chocolate chip cookies. I did not win the blue ribbon medal for them, but they are blue ribbon chocolate chip cookies, and they are delicious.
Delicious.
I mean,
And a thank you to Heather for organizing the food too.
Yes.
Cheers.
It's an image or and the rhythm. So I found myself texting to a friend last night, and I was texting in rhyme. And I said, what is this anyway? I said, stop this spell, Bonnie. It was Bonnie Gardner from Chatsworth. I said, stop this spell. I said, make me stop. And then I went on to have another rhyme that I did, another rhyme in time or something. It just kept going. And then she stopped the spell. So I don't know how she did it, but I stopped, and I was cured of that. The bit of much. Anyway, I do tend to just go with the flow, and it's hard to. You probably find this. It's hard to plan. You know, it's more organic. So
something just comes to you.
Something comes to you. Someone's words, someone's language, or something you hear.
or the orgasmic nature of Earl's cooking.
Exactly, exactly. You gotta keep this guy cooking.
Yeah.
I mean, I often do the baking, but, people do not live on baking alone. So you gotta have the
Well,
roast beef.
pretty, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Anything you're curious about?
Your new bird there.
Jeff, are your books
Oh, the bird.
novels, memoirs, nonfiction?
I'm not sure.
The one that you've written, the one that you're, like, Chuck a real person that you will.
No,
write
sorry,
about?
the book that I have written is a memoir, and this one is a novel. It's a work of complete
It's a
fiction.
Ribble's memoir.
Yes, it does, yes. If you were to take the book home or something, don't show it to your children, because it's about life in the construction industry, and the people talk the way they do in the construction industry, so. I have a podcast out that kinda has an X rated on it for its language.
So it's gonna be banned pretty soon.
Well, the ironic thing is, the funny thing is that, yeah, this is a memoir about people in the construction business, but it made it to the top, Amazon's top 40s, it was number 47 in Amazon's love, sex, and humor category.
You deserve the category.
With what I have written at all. Sir?
Dylan, pardon me, Dylan Thomas once talked about his writing as his craft and sullen art. And that phrase has always struck me because it reminds me that writing is not always a pleasant endeavor. I wonder whether each of you could indicate whether you've had periods of real difficulty when the words simply wouldn't flow. And how do you deal with it? Do you walk away for a while and then come back to it? Or do you barrel your way through it? Or do you find some other way of dealing with the dark and difficult side of being a writer?
I went for 2 years once, when I could not write. All I could write, I could still write letters, and I did. I wrote tons and tons of letters, but I couldn't do creative writing. And finally, I went to a neighbor's house, and we were close friends. And I remember her standing at her kitchen sink, and she turned around and she said, "Sheila, you go home, you write something. I don't care if it's only a sentence. You write it and you send it to me, because writing is who you are, it's what you do." And I went home and I started to write something for her, and that started me writing again. It's been my only real experience with writer's block, but maybe some of you have had.
I find if I'm stuck, and it's not in flow, I will do something else that's creative. I will bake, I will do scrapbooking, an avid scrapbooker. I'll go for a walk, I'll read something, and it will come back. You know, it's an endless well that just needs to be refilled with more art. Go to the art gallery and anywhere, see a painting over there, and let your mind wander. And you just fill yourself with art and experiences, and then the writing will follow, if that's your thing. It might be something else, painting or sculpture that follows, but just fill yourself with art and stories. I mean, go listen to people's stories of their lives, and you'll just be mesmerized by everything that people have survived. We all have our stories, and some people are ready to tell them, and it's a joy when you can share them, and you get a response like this. You know, you get a heartfelt response to what has happened that in your life, and you've survived it, and you've thrived. I mean,
How about you, Geoff? Ever have writer's block?
Yeah, I guess. I do find that writing with a deadline eliminates any notion of a block. And it's not so much the pressure as it is, okay, I have this amount of time to do one thing, and I want to do it. When the stretch gets longer, as in a novel, say, and there is no time frame, I can easily go off on a tangent, and sort of self-block myself, if you will, write for a while and go, this makes no sense at all, or this is not, I don't want to be going in this direction. And often, I'm sure you've all had that experience of, once you get going, you don't know where you're going to end on a day. Characters end up speaking for themselves and stuff, and then sometimes I go, I don't want it to be like that. And that creates the block, and then I go, oh God, I'll go and chop wood, and just have to forget about it.
And maybe that's the way he is, you just have to let him be. I mean, maybe he's gonna be your alter ego, or this critic on your shoulder that's saying, well, this is who I am, and you've gotta let me be the character in your mind.
Nah, I want my alter ego to look good.
Well, thank you for 3 enlightening and quite different answers.
How about yourself? Do you experience writer's block with all your publications?
Yeah, and I usually, I'm good at stewing. So I stew about it in place of actually doing the work, until the pain of stewing just becomes intolerable, and then I sit down, start to write again, and I feel an immediate sense of relief. And I quite often say to myself, why the hell did you spend the last 2 weeks stewing? Why didn't you just write and make yourself feel better?
Right.
Isn't that true in not just writing, but maybe everything that we get stuck in and don't deal with?
Yeah, like Swiffering, you mean?
Even that,
I know what you mean.
like just get at it.
Yeah.
Just get at it.
Or not.
When you said about on your shoulder, that reminds me, I often feel as if, it's always my right shoulder, I feel as if there's a voice on my right shoulder. I will know what I write with a computer, and I will know where I'm going with a sentence, and all of a sudden, a different word comes. No, don't use that word, use this word. It's almost like I don't hear an audible voice, but the message comes to me that I have to change the word now. And that happens very, very often. Yeah.
Wow.
No, you don't have that?
No, I just never heard you mention that
Mention it,
before.
yeah. Maybe it's because, I still use a thesaurus. I don't know if other writers do, but I still use a
I
thesaurus.
use it on my phone.
Yeah.
Synonyms for, and it's something I'll have a word that I know it's back there.
Yeah.
I have to retrieve it, and I just don't remember what the word is, but I'll know it when I recognize it. And I look it up, look up the word that I have in my mind. I'll find it.
Well, thanks, everybody, and stick around, and if you want to buy books, we're happy to sell them.
We are.
Thank you.
So glad you're here with us today.
Yeah, thank you, library people, all over the place. You named us library folk, back there. Very kind of you to host us. And, don't eat all the cookies.
Is there a limit?
You have one for each hand and one to take home. That should be enough.
I'm getting close to the end.